All right, guys, I'll be ready in just a second. Yeah. Great. We are live on YouTube. So great. Thanks everybody again for coming today. If I can ask you to do me a favor and just, if you can turn off your screens for right now. We can turn them on later on. It'll just make it a little bit easier for the YouTube feed that you're going to be looking at. And just mute yourselves and we'll get a chance to give you guys a chance to talk to at the end as well. First of all, welcome everybody. My name is Ralph Valenzusi. If you don't know me, I'm the Chief of Digital Learning and Development for the district. And I'm excited to turn over the reins in a few minutes to Jeff and to Casey to talk to you a little bit about Google Classroom. Really, what we're going to be doing today is going through the basics of Google Classroom. For some of you, this may be new. For some of you, it may not be. But we're going to talk a little bit about how do you log into Google Classroom. We're going to talk about creating a classroom, actually adding students. How are you going to be able to create an assignment? How are you going to be able to attach videos and documents to those items? And then also how students will be able to submit activities. So that's basically what we want to cover today in about 40 minutes. You'll be able to go back and review it a little bit later. And at the end of this, we're going to have a little bit of a question and answer period. I know that Jen's on, I think Kate and a few others, so that we can start to talk about the rollout specifically for second and third grade teachers on what's going to be expected those first couple of weeks of working with Google Classroom with your kids, and give you a chance to ask questions as well as look at what the your pacing chart is over each day, what the expectations are. So with that, I want to tell you that first of all, we were very lucky to have some great teachers in the district that have been using Google at the elementary and middle school levels. Jeff Bradbury is one of our teachers over at West Rocks. He's a Google certified trainer and joined the Newark Public Schools this past year, and he's been just such an asset to the district. And everybody at the elementary schools, many of you already know Casey Anderson. Casey is one of our star digital literacy people at the elementary schools and works at Cranberry. So we're happy to have Casey, and they're going to kind of tag team each other, work on showing you a little bit about Google Classroom, and we'll have a conversation right after that. So with that, let me kind of turn it over to Jeff and Casey. So Jeff, take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Ralph. It is great to be here. I can't believe we have 78 amazing teachers here today. Thank you so much. Today, we're going to be doing a shallow through deep dive of Google Classroom. I want this to be as interactive as possible, starting right now. I have a quick question for you guys. If you can locate the chat, I want to know that you guys are out there. I have a quick question for you. If you can do me one of three things, can you either type in a 1 if you're a newbie, 2, I've done a little bit of classroom and I'm still learning, or 3 for I've got the basics, teach me more. I'd love to know where we are. Now, Casey, while that's flipping through, can you average all those scores together and let me know what we are? Get on that, my friend, in a second.
Yeah, I'll get on that. I'll get on that.
So it looks like we're mostly in the 2 or 3 range. I do see some 1. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start with the basics, spend 5 or 6 minutes in there, and then we're going to start to talk more about the what can we do with things. And if you have any questions, I am going to stop every 5 or 6 minutes or so to make sure that we're here. So first of all, my name is Jeff. I do teach at West Rocks, and I am looking forward to what's going to be happening in the next week. Ralph, I just have to share because I'm so excited about this. This is my last week living in my house in New Jersey. As of Friday, I'm going to be a citizen of Connecticut, and I'm looking forward to that. So all is good with that. I'm going to be sharing my desktop, and we should all see my desktop screen, correct? And so Google Classroom. I want to start off with what is Google Classroom? And everybody has a different idea about what Google Classroom is. Is it a learning management system? Is it a website? Is it a website substitute? Here's how I think about Google Classroom. It is a document distribution center. It is the best document distribution center I've ever seen. If you've got something that you want your students to do on Google Docs, and I use Docs as the overall universal, doc sheet, slides, anything like that. This is how you want to do your distribution. I think of Google Classroom as a digital version of your paper self. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that means. Right now, if you are in your classroom, you might have a stack of papers and you're going to distribute them to your students. They're going to do the assignment and hand it back. That's exactly what we're going to be looking forward to doing with Google Classroom. So if I use the word paper a couple times today, just understand everything that we do here has a resemblance to the physical form. Okay, so how do we find Google Classroom? There's two ways to do it. Number one, and I think the best way or the most recommended way here is to go in through ClassLink. You can find it through there. You can also bookmark classroom.google.com. And I always bookmark it right here. I even recommend that the students bookmark it, classroom.google.com. And when you get to Google Classroom, you are seen by your dashboard. And what we're looking at here is all of our different classes. I'm going to show you guys in a second how to make these classes. One thing that you can notice here is we've got two different kinds of classes. Ones that I'm a student in and ones that I'm a teacher in. And as an employee of Norwalk, you can be both, right? You as the teacher can create a classroom for your students, but you as a adult can also be a student in another person's classroom, in your principal's classroom, in a group of other people's classrooms. And they don't necessarily have to be academic. For instance, right now at West Rocks, we put all of our 8th graders into a big Google Classroom so we can hand out things like the virtual trip to Boston that we just did. We're now going to be handing out documents for graduation or whatever we call it there, you know, and end of the year stuff. So Google Classroom can be used for many, many, many things. It's just a matter of how do we want to distribute resources? And it is absolutely the perfect thing. Couple things to know before we get started here. Google Classroom is really nothing more than a visual dashboard for what's happening in your Google Drive. Let me say that again. It's a visual for what's happening in Google Drive. For every single classroom that you have, you've got a file folder. And I'll dive into this in a little bit, but really everything that we do in Classroom, you're going to be able to see, locate, and manipulate if you need to using your Google Drive. Everything is there. It helps to organize. So let's dive in. Okay, I'm going to show you right now what it looks like to be a teacher. And in a couple seconds, I'm going to switch over so you can see what a teacher looks like and what a student looks like. Okay, so you'll notice here that I've got all of my classes. Okay, and the ones that have this little arrow here, these are my teacher classes because I actually have a, you can do grading in Google Classroom. I'll talk a little bit about why you'd want to, why you wouldn't want to, etc. as we go. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to create our first class. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hit the plus button. And I've got two options, join class or create class. And what we're going to do is we're going to hit create. Okay, before I do that, I'm going to notice here, notice I've got blue and then I've got this red. Because at West Rocks, I teach several sections of tech ed. I keep them all the same color. And then my broadcasting, I keep a completely different color. So you're gonna see a theme with that as we go through. But I'm gonna create a class, and I'm gonna have my class name be called Google Classroom Training. Section, I'll just call it Wednesday, and subject will be K5, right? And room, I'll call it Zoom. You don't have to fill out all of those things, but I just wanted to show you what you can do here. And I'm going to create. And what this is going to do is two things. It's going to open up a brand new Google Classroom, but also it's creating a folder in my Google Drive. Okay, so this is actually creating a folder in my Google Drive. I'll show you that in a second. Now, you're going to notice a few things. We've got some tabs up here: stream, classwork, people, and grades. Okay, over here we have our banner. This has actually changed over the last couple weeks. I'll show you the changes and why that's important. And our stream is exactly what you would think. As Facebook, as Twitter, as LinkedIn, it is where we communicate. Okay, and there's a lot of teachers that are using this as the chat room with their students, especially during distant learning. Okay, and to do so, I'm going to simply click on share with class, and I can say hello class, and if it can be as simple as hitting post, and now everything comes up. My students can look at that. They can add a comment if I give them the permission to. And it really is that simple. If I want, I can edit it. If I had a spelling mistake, if I want to change something, I can delete it, or I can copy a link. Okay, and that comes up important in different locations. Let me show you another one. I can also say, here is a link to our website. And over here under the add, I've got a bunch of options. I can add a Google Drive folder file. I can add a link. I can attach a file, or I can put a YouTube video in here. And this is just, again, think of this as the chat. So if I do a link to google.com, it's going to automatically populate here. It's going to put a little thumbnail in. And when I hit post, it's going to come up with, here's a link to our website. The students will click on this and it opens up to Google. Fairly simple. I can also say, please check out this Google Doc. All right. And from here, I can go into my Google Drive and I've got all of my recents. I can also upload a file. I can do a search through my drive. I can look through my start, and of course I can see anything else that's in my shared drive. But for right now, I'm just going to click on this spreadsheet here that I have. This is how I keep my daily attendance for my kids. And now I can hit post. And so depending on how I have my Google Docs set up, I can have that be an editable doc, or a view only doc, or any number of things. I can say, here's a doc that's just going to go out to a few people. Now, I mention that because let's say that you've got different groups of people. I can say, hello, group 1. And I don't have any students yet here, but it says all students, or eventually if I have other students, you're going to see I can send this message to 3 out of my 25 students. Okay, so you can do group work here. I can say, hello, group 1, send it to 3 students, post. Hello, group 2, send it to a bunch of students. Okay, fairly simple, straightforward. Okay, so let me hit post on that and you can see that. Now, I'll go one more on this and I can say, hello, all of my classes. And the other thing is over here on this tab, if you've got more Google Classrooms, okay, you can actually create one announcement and have it go to all of the classes. And I'm not going to do that now because then my kids will get it. But you can now say, you can do something once and have it spread between all of your Google Classrooms. Okay. Let me do a quick poll here. And Casey, maybe you can help me out with this. In elementary school, are we recommending, or are you as teachers, there I am, creating one Google Classroom for all of 5th grade, and no matter what the subject is, it's the same Google Classroom? Or are we asking teachers to create one for science, one for social studies, and we're breaking it off like that? If you guys have a method for organizing your Google Classrooms, I'd love to hear from you guys. Please leave a message in the chat here in case if you want to chime in on any tips and tricks for handling the same number, like the same students over the course of a day. What do you think?
Yeah, I think for the most part, at least when I did it for my classroom, I kept it as each class. If I had more than one class, but even social studies science, everything went through one
Yes.
one classroom. So if it was just my fourth grade class or second grade class, I would just keep everything all in one area.
And
Okay.
yeah, and that would be the recommendation, especially at a lower grade level.
Yeah.
That we'd
Yes.
want to make sure that it's just one portal for them to go to. So correct.
So let's talk about why I'm asking this question. And I'm glad that Ralph brought this up. Lower grades, upper grades. Myself, I have 6-year-old triplets. I have 3 kids that all have kindergarten-based Google Classrooms. So for the lower grade teachers, I'm right there with you as both a teacher and as a parent. Okay. Let's talk about some of these other settings here. Okay. So that's our stream. There's nothing about this. There's no assignment. There's no grading. This is basically stream, conversation view. What I do before all of my classes, I'll come into here and I'll say something like, "Hey, how you doing? Here's the links of what we're doing today," and then meet me in the Google Meet. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about as we go here. And if anybody has any questions, let me know. Okay. You're going to notice a couple things up here. Google Classroom Training. This is the name of our classroom. You can see that we're on the Wednesday section. And here it gives us our class code. And Google's really nice because not only does it give us here, but we can open this up. And if we want, we can have students, write the code down and they can sign themselves in. If that's not big enough, you can now expand it if you're on your board, and now all the kids in the back of the room or in the auditorium can now copy down this code. This is one of the ways to get students in, okay? I'll show you more about this in a second, and then once we get off of the stream, I'm gonna show you an extremely easy way through PowerSchool to put all of your students on in less than 3 minutes. And I think you guys might like that one the best. But right now we have our class code. Here's my advice on this. Once you get your students in, I disable the class codes. There's no reason to have it once you have all of your students in. The other thing here is it says Meet link. Now, this is actually new as of like a month or so ago, where you can actually generate a link here to go into Google Meet. And this is not only convenient, this is actually a security thing, because the only people that are going to be able to get into this Google Meet link are the students in your Google Classroom. And they're only allowed into your Google Meet link as long as you are in the Google Meet. Okay, getting some good questions about using separate days assignments. Let me get into all of that because I want to dive into some organizational stuff. Okay, over here we have probably one of the more popular tabs, which is changing the themes. And if you do a search anywhere in Google right now for Google Classroom banners, you can find people that have made really cool templates. Or you can always go into something like a Canva or a Google Drawing or even a Google Slide, and you can create your own templates. The resolution, in case anybody's interested, is actually 1200 by 300, and I can leave that, or Casey, if you can type that in there. It's 1200 by 300 is the resolution that you need if you want to be adventurous on there. But you can change this to whatever you want, and as soon as you change class theme, this automatically updates and your students will automatically share the same thing. Okay, so any questions about the stream? The next thing I want to hit is settings, and then we're going to go back and do classwork people grades. Any questions about stream or functionality of just basic communication using Google Classrooms? Can you pin announcements to the top? Over here, we have move to top. We can certainly do all that. I don't remember a pin button. I don't see a pin button. That's a good question, but I don't see that as an option.
Yeah,
No, there's
I
no
think
pin, Jeff. There's just, like you said, you can move it to the top but no, I don't
Exactly.
think there's a pin.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and we'll kind of keep an eye, Jeff, on the chat
Okay.
too as well. So keep going. I just want to make sure we can get through all the different topics. You're covering so
Oh,
much. And
Awesome.
we will talk, as Jeff's getting this set up too. We will have another conversation, as I mentioned, about Google Meet specifically next week.
Okay. So just a couple things. I'm going to go through this really, really quickly. Here in the settings is your class code. You can always reset it, or once you have your students in, I recommend just disabling it, because why keep it there? Your stream, I usually put, when I was in class, it was only teachers can post. Now that we're on distant learning, I have it so that way my students can comment. The biggest thing here is this: you can hit generate your Meet link, and then when I hit save and get out of here, now here's your Google Meet, and it's just a Google Meet. That's all it is. Okay. The other thing you're noticing there all the way at the bottom is it says grading templates. I'm happy to talk about that at a later date, but I want to make sure that we're staying on topic with all of those things. Let's come over here into classwork. This is very similar to the stream, but there's two major differences. Number one, you can organize things. Number two, this connects directly into Google Calendar, okay, which is awesome. This is actually the only app that I can think of that has deep integration with Google Calendar. So let's assume that you're going to do one classroom for your entire day, science, math, social studies, whatever. What I would recommend is we go to create and we create a topic, and the topic could be science, and we're going to say add. And so now I'm going to go to topic, and let's say we do math. So now you're basically breaking down your third grade into the different subjects. If you wanted to use a Google Classroom per subject area, then these might be chapter 1, chapter 2, or earth science, physical science, however it is, you can break these down into topics. Now I'm going to hit create. I've got a couple options here. I can create an assignment, a quiz, a question. Now the questions are pretty cool here. And the assignments, you know what? Let me stop right there, because what I actually want to do is I want to pop in over here. What you're seeing right now is two screens, because I want to do this in the same way. Here, I'm going to open up my Google Classroom. Okay. And what your students are going to see is they're going to see two options when they first log in. They're going to say, I'm a student and I'm a teacher. And I'm going to click I'm a student over here. And what I want to do is I want to actually add my people here, because I want to do this all at the same time. I'm going to go over to students. I'm going to click on type name, and we called our person fake student. And I'm going to invite my fake student here. Okay. And in a couple seconds, you're going to notice that over here, this is going to pop in. And all that the student needs to do at that point is hit join. Okay, so if you set your students up ahead of time in your classroom, all the kid has to do is come over here and hit join. Now you're going to notice a couple things. If I look under the stream, it all looks the same. Okay, the one thing that the student doesn't have set up is a grading tab yet. I'm going to click over here under classwork, just so that way we can kind of save time and see what's happening here. All right. Over here, notice the teacher side is organized. The student side is not yet organized. So I'm going to create an assignment. Okay. And my assignment is going to say math homework. Okay. Please complete your math homework. All right. For what? I can actually assign this to multiple Google Classrooms if I want. Again, I can say all students, or I could only send it to my fake students. I'm going to give a point value, or I might say it's ungraded. I'm going to give a due date. And I noticed that by default, the due date's always tomorrow. So even though there's a time option here, just know, like, if you're going to be setting this up today for a class happening today, you might need to back this up by a day. But I'll say it's due tomorrow. Okay. What topic? Well, it's a math homework. So I'm going to put this under math. Now, rubrics are really, really cool. I don't have all the time in the world, but I can actually create an easy to use grading rubric on here that essentially I can just go down and click for all of that. Now, what's my math homework? It could be many things. I could add a Google Drive, and let me show you what that looks like right here. All right, so I'm just going to add this Google Doc, and you can add as many things as you want to on here. I can add a link, and the link, of course, is going to go to www.norrps.org. So I can say up here, please go to the link and use the link to complete the Google Doc, right? I can add a YouTube video. I can put a file on. I can do whatever I need to. I also have the ability to create something where if I just want them to, if the assignment for today is use this blank Google Doc as note paper, that's a great way of doing things. I've seen a lot of teachers say, okay, everybody take out a Google Doc and share with me. I want us to think about Google Classroom in that reverse, where I'm actually giving you the Google Doc or the slide or the whatever and sending it to me. Same idea here. If I want to put a link out to a Nearpod or to a video, anything like that, this is a great way to get everybody literally on the same page at the same time. So, couple things of note. Right here is my Google Doc. I've got a couple options. The first one by default is students can view. I want all of my students to view this document, meaning they can't change it. This would be great for PDFs, for directions, stuff that you don't want the kids to mess around with. The next one here is students can edit, and that means everybody attack the document. This would be the digital equivalent of everybody up on the whiteboard at the same time with markers. This gets fun. Little nutty, but this gets fun. The one you're mostly going to be using would be make a copy. And this is no different, again, going back to it's a digital version of a physical piece of paper. This is here's my homework assignment, here's my document, and everyone's going to get a copy. So I'll show you a couple things here. I'm going to hit assign, and it takes a couple seconds because essentially it's now creating a folder in your drive. It's now creating a folder in all of your students' drives, and it's making a copy of everything. So in a second here, you're going to see that this is assigned. And obviously, the more kids you have, it takes 10, 30 seconds or so like that. So now it is saved. Okay. If I come over here and I hit refresh, did that not go through? Assigning? Oh, you know what? Probably because of this. All right, so here we have our assignments. Notice this automatically popped in. I now have a title for math. And as a teacher, I can view that there's two things here. I've assigned it to one student and nobody has turned it in. So if I hit view, this is what it looks like. Here's my instructions page. As a student, if I hit view assignments, it looks very similar with the difference meaning I now have a turn in button. And this is important, okay? This turn in button is really, really important. A student can now work on the assignments, leave a private comment. Hello, can you help me? Okay, so you can actually have a conversation with the students and all is going to be well. The student's going to open this up, do the work, and you're going to also notice that up here, I understand, it automatically put the name of the student. So it automatically gives the student's name on the piece of paper, on the document. And that doesn't matter if it's a Google Doc sheet, slide, whatever, it's all here. Now, one of the other things is I'm going to be able to look at my student work. I can see that under fake student, he left a message that says, hello, can you help me? And if I click on this, I can actually comment back. So I can have amazing conversations with my students through Google Classroom. Okay, you're going to notice in a couple seconds, this will pop up. I can even go into this doc and work on it. I can leave a comment. I can do anything. And this is not the original doc. This is now a copy of the original doc. So then the question comes up, what if I give out something to the students and I realize that there's a spelling mistake, I want to upload it, I want to update it, something. And the answer is once the copy is made, the copy is made. You really can't go back in and fix 30 kids worth of stuff here. Now, if I'm looking at this, this says that the document was assigned, and over here, I've done my work. And it's really, really important. that all the students get into the habit of clicking this turn in button. Do I want to turn in my work? Yes, because this alerts you, the teacher, that the student has finished the work. Number one. Number two, it also changes ownership. Again, this is like a piece of paper. If I give Casey the piece of paper, he now has it on his desk. He can work on it. It's his, he owns it, etc. He might be finished with the doc and not turn it in. And then he can make changes. But now you can see over here that he's turned this in, but also what this has done is this has now locked out my student from changing the stuff. So once he hits the turn in button, that's like giving the piece of paper back, putting it on the teacher's desk. Can the student unsubmit? Absolutely. The student can always come in here and unsubmit, and then it reflects on here. So again, thinking about this as a piece of paper, get your students used to hitting that turn in button. That's really, really, really important. Casey, how are we doing for topics? Ralph, how are we doing for time?
I think oh, go ahead, Casey. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. I mean, looks like you're covering a lot. I mean, it is a lot to deal with. So, I'm trying to cover all the questions. It looks like I'm getting most of them, and you're hitting it too. So
Excellent.
Yeah, you're definitely doing well, and I think that yeah, you've covered a lot in 35 minutes. So maybe if we try to, what we'll try to do is wrap up this piece of it in about 10 minutes, and then we'll just leave it open for question and answers and stuff, and I'll turn off the recording.
So let's do one more thing. I think we're safe to do this with the recordings here. What I want to do is I want to show you guys how we use this practically, right? Because that was really, I mean, Google Classroom as it is not a complicated system. You have the stream, and oh, by the way, if you notice, the assignment is marked here. Okay, so in the stream, you can see that we now have a math homework, and here it is. Okay. What I'd like to do is I'd like to actually come over here, and I want to show you guys how we handle things. Now, you'll notice do this because this is there. What I've done here is given out an assignment, and I'm going to go into this a little bit more detail, I think, once we turn off the recording, but you can see as far as distant learning is concerned, I give my students a little hello. Here's the directions. Here is a video. Here is another video. We actually had to do this in 2 parts because the video is only 5 minutes long. And then I've given out my slides. So this is a Google Classroom assignment. You can see I've assigned it to my 17 kids. And because this came out today, nobody has yet turned it in. I can click on here and see their progress. Okay. I'm not going to because we're live. But you can also see here that I've gotten a rubric. And if I click on the rubric, just as you would expect, I can say, this is 10 points, this is 5 points, and at the end, it'll add everything up to here. So the rubric feature came in about a month and a half ago, and this has been an amazing resource to use and to have. Okay, and Ralph, I think I'll go into a little bit more detail when we're offline because names and stuff like that. But I just wanted to show off, like, this is how I create my assignments. I have a template, which is basically my piece of paper. I'm giving it to them, and I'm giving them a video of how to do things, in whatever detail I need.
Sounds good.
Because of names and stuff, I think that's as far as I'd like to go, but I wouldn't mind going farther once we're offline, Ralph.
No, definitely we will. We'll shut off the stream in just a second, but I think there's actually a couple of questions that were coming up that we should be able to cover. One was around, Casey, I thought I saw something with assignments. Is that correct in this chat?
yeah, that's what I was looking at now. I believe it was asking about subjects and just putting it for different subjects. It was.
If you could just go over one more time in the classwork, how you set up the
Sure.
topics.
So there's a couple things here. We have these topics, right? And you can create the topics ahead of time, okay? You can even move these topics around. And the nice thing, this is all drag and drop, okay? If I'm creating a class assignment, all right, and I can do this, I can also create a new topic here. So this might be social studies. Right? And so that's going to create a new topic for me. And I've got all these. So if I hit assign, let me come over here. I'm going to notice a social studies thing that just popped in, and this is here. There's a lot to be talked about when it comes to organizing, because some people will do CH1, Unit 2. You know, everybody's going to start to have their own naming conventions on here. Here's what's important, and this is where I like these buttons up here. Number one, anything that I do with an assignment date, like this says due tomorrow. If I open up my Google Calendar, you're gonna see under tomorrow that there's an assignment due. It says right here, assignment due. Okay, so that means that the students have this on their Google Calendar too. And I know that the younger kids might not mess around with Google Calendar, but for the older kids, I recommend putting the Google Classroom app on their phones. And that way that, you know, there's notifications and things that pop out on here. But I just wanted you guys to understand there is a relationship between putting things in here as classwork with the date and Google Calendar. Also, just because I mentioned this a couple of times, I can open up my classroom folder. You're going to notice that in your Google Drive, there is a folder now called Classroom. Inside of Classroom are all of your classes. Inside of that Classroom folder are all of your assignments. So it really is organizing things nicely for you. I must say, don't mess with this. Let Google Classroom do all the manipulating of things. Try not to come in here. You can see I have access to all of my students' documents. I can mess around with this, but my suggestion, because I've seen this happen a lot, is just let this Classroom folder remain. Try not to move it. Don't manipulate it. Don't just leave it the way it is. I've seen a few situations where a teacher accidentally deletes the Classroom folder. And to the best of my knowledge, there's no way to get it back and working the right way. So if you see this Classroom folder in your Google Drive, just know that it's Google Classroom. And I tell my students that the same thing too. Okay. Again, if you want to open up a Google Meet, you've got that. People is everybody who's here. Can you have multiple teachers? Yes, right? If you want to add your tech coach as a teacher, great. If you want to add a co-teacher or a language teacher into you can do that too, okay? You know what? I'm going to share off one last thing, Ralph, because this is majorly important, and I'll say it's hidden. If I come back into classes, okay, sorry, and if I come all the way down here, there's two things. Number one, you've got archived classes. You cannot delete a Google Classroom. Let me say that again. You can't delete a Google Classroom. What you can do is come in here to the three dots. I call that a snowman. And you can archive it, which essentially means it removes itself from this desktop area, because next year you might want to find it again. Okay, so you can't delete things in the same way. If you're in your Google Drive, like, please don't delete these folders, because there is a link between this and Classroom. The other thing that you're going to notice is that Google Classroom does a lot of emails to you, and you might get tired really quickly of all the notification emails, because every time somebody emails you, every time somebody hits the turn in button and stuff, you will get an email. So you can always come into settings under notifications and say, how often would you like your inbox to be bothered? Okay, this is a big one that most teachers don't realize, because the only place to find it is all the way down here. But you can manipulate the settings for how often your inbox gets hit with that. Just know that if Casey and I are both co-teachers and he does something, I get notifications for it too. We are co-teachers in every respect for that. Okay, that's basically the idea. The only other thing I might, let me just do one last thing, Ralph, and then we'll really open it up.
Okay.
I can create an assignment, self-explanatory. Quiz assignments opens up a new Google quiz, which is a Google form. It actually gives you the Google form. You can create it, okay? You also have the opportunity to lock out your Chromebooks, which, Ralph, does this still work if they're at home right now on their Chromebooks?
I don't believe it. It may not, so.
Okay, but when you're back at school, you can actually create a quiz in here that says when the kids are taking the quiz, they can't move different tabs. They're locked into that. So that's something there. The other one that I really, really like is a question. You can create these in 20 seconds. How are you? And over here, it could be a short answer or a multiple choice. So happy, sad, dopey, right? So really, really quickly, you can check for understanding and you can ask a question over here. And then really quickly, you'll see if this pops up. The student's going to be able to get this question. And now you've got immediate feedback. So how are you? I'm happy. I hit turn in. And now over here, you can see that when the grade pops in, that there's your check for understanding. That's a really, really, really powerful feature that every teacher on distant learning should do. And the last one that I'll throw, Ralph, is reuse post. If you are doing multiple classrooms or if you want to use anything over again, you can always come up here and reuse posts from other classrooms or whatever. Doesn't seem to be pulling in stuff right now, but that's okay. I just wanted to show off those different things. It's not just assignments. And in a nutshell, that's Google Classroom.
Cool, cool. Jeff, I'm just going to cut off the live stream right now in the
Please.
recording.
Let me open up PowerSchool.